Design shapes the way you live. I'm Nico, an interior design expert focused on the connection between home and well-being. Using science, design, and professional expertise, I'll help you shape a space that elevates your mindset and enhances your well-being. Let's create space for better living, starting now. Welcome to Your Home by Design, where we dive into the art and science of designing spaces that help you thrive. I'm Nico, and I'm here to guide you through creating a home that not only looks great, but feels great to live in. Have you ever walked into a room in your house and felt off? Maybe it feels chaotic, mismatched, or just not quite right, but you can't pinpoint why. Well, you're not alone. Many of us stare at our rooms feeling overwhelmed by all the clashing elements. Too many colors, too many styles, or just too much stuff. The good news, you don't have to feel stuck. Today, we're breaking it all down. Why certain spaces overwhelm us, what's happening in our brains when we face visual clutter, and most importantly, how to fix it. I'll share some practical tips on using balance, repetition, and flow to create a space that feels intentional, cohesive, and uniquely you. By the end of this episode, you'll know exactly how to start stripping back the chaos, infusing your style, and creating a room you're proud of. One that truly supports your happiness and well-being. So grab a coffee or a notebook and let's dive in. So if you're unsure what direction to take your room, you're feeling overwhelmed with what's in there and what you want to add or change, if you catch yourself just staring blankly into your room and just feeling like all the clashing elements are doing your head in, you're not alone. Just the other day, I walked past my daughter's room and, I often will stop and just take in a room and sort of feel my responses and look at how everything's playing on each other and just really analyze and sort of do a visual edit of the space. And I just felt like something was off. I felt this sort of uneasiness as I was looking at the room. And so I'm always looking to critique, well, what's that coming from? Is it the clutter because there was some mess? Or is it actually particular elements within the space that aren't working? So I feel you. You're not alone here, but why do clashing elements bother you, right? What's going on inside? Why does visual clutter, so many things mismatched or overuse of different styles and colors of things, why is this problematic for our brains and our bodies? Well, this has everything to do with balance, repetition, and flow. And these are three sort of design principles that interior designers use when they're creating a space. And today I'm going to explain these terms and I'll share some ways that you can use them to your advantage. I'll also explain why you feel the way you do about your room, why you feel there's too much going on and you're really not sure where to pull back, what to add, what to take away, or the direction that you should go. Like too many wood tones or too many colors, too much stuff. You might find that you love each piece when you focus in and pay attention to each piece on their own. But when you're looking at the room together as a whole, and you're standing back and taking it all in, you might feel like nothing is working. Okay, today I'm going to help you strip that back. And as always, I'm going to explain why this is overwhelming you, what's going on inside, and what you need to do to get this right, to get your room working for you in whatever ways you need it to. So if you want to boost your happiness or your productivity or change your habits, okay? And trust me, you will be able to relax in style and you'll feel so proud of the space that you created. But just a little teaser for next episode, okay? So if you find that you're on the other extreme, where you're feeling overwhelmed with just how to add things to more of a blank space, it's lacking personality and you don't have the pieces that you connect with, you're not displaying anything that has a story or meaning, you may live in a space that's void of personality. So if this is you, make sure you tune in to next episode. Okay, I think it's episode 37. So I think it's really about stripping it back so that you can start infusing the elements that are really important, that will ultimately keep your space looking intentional and cohesive. Now, I just want to point out that intentional and cohesive does not have to be boring. Okay, it certainly doesn't have to be matchy-matchy. So if you're thinking that intentional and cohesive might look like the same colors or everything the same style and all of that, no, that's not what I'm talking about. I love a good eclectic space, and there is so much beauty in the mix of the mix, okay? So I'm definitely not saying that you should only have one species of wood, one accent color. In fact, I'm kind of saying the opposite. It's about paring down, simplifying what's competing, and giving you some rules so you feel empowered to pick and choose with ease, okay? So rules. That's how we know when we've gone too far one way or gone too far the other way, okay? So it's okay to mix styles. It's okay to mix woods and colors, but I'm going to share those tips and how you can do this so that your body responds in the ways that will really allow you to feel great in the space and to stop that feeling of confusion. Because if you feel good in your space, a whole bunch of things start to happen in your body and your brain, which will ultimately allow you to use the space as a tool for your health and your well-being. And you're just going to love it. You're going to feel great in the space because it's beautiful, but it's also beneficial. So let's look at what's happening in your brain and your body that's giving you that, this is not right. This uneasy, and this room is not complete. You're not satisfied with how the space is looking. So why does this happen? Why does it cause you to feel like your room's not pulled together? And I'll get into sort of more of what's going on inside as I explain balance, repetition, and flow. But firstly, I just want to say that our brains can only take in a certain amount of information at a time. So when we walk into a room, we are essentially scanning a room, and our eyes are looking for a place to rest. Now, this is happening naturally. You're probably not even aware that this is what's going on. And believe it or not, our brains, we want to make sense of our environment. So we walk into a space and our brains, they are looking for things that are repeating. They're looking for balance, proportion, scale. They are paying attention to the flow of a space. This is happening to us naturally. So this is why when you walk into a room, you can tell that it feels really good. Your body, your brain is responding to this room in really positive ways. Or you can walk into a room and feel like something's off, something's not quite right. What is this? And that's why, because instantly, when we walk into a space, we are perceiving our environment and we're looking for things that repeat. We're looking for balance. So now let's get into what is balance, repetition, and flow. So starting with balance. Balance is basically how you distribute visual weight around a room. And you can do this with texture, with furniture placement, with lighting, with art, architectural elements. So I want you to just walk through a scenario with me. I want you to picture a room with a fireplace in the center of the room, on the center of a wall. Then picture on one side, let's say the left side, you have a small decorative table, so like a console table. And on the other side, the right side, you have a large cabinet with closed storage. And both are the same height. You can put, there's like a counter surface. So right away, which one has more visual weight? Picture looking at the room, the little table on the left, the large closed cabinet on the right, small and big, the cabinet. Right? It looks heavier. Now, even if that cabinet and that table were the same length, the table is going to visually appear lighter in the room. And the cabinet is going to visually appear heavier. The cabinet has got closed storage. The table is open underneath. Now imagine if I were to then add a large piece of art above the cabinet and then some oversized objects on it, let's say a vase with flowers. When you walk into that room and you look at that wall and you see the table on the left with nothing and the cabinet on the right with the art and the flowers, right away, you're going to feel that it's unbalanced. So what we know is we automatically sense when the balance is off. Your eyes will be darting around trying to make sense of the space. And if it's not balanced, then you're going to feel a sense of tension. We're also naturally looking for order and predictability. Studies suggest that in a balanced space, cognitive overload is reduced. Cognitive overload is just a lot of stuff going on in your brain. Your brain's just taking in a lot of information. There's an overload of information. So when that's reduced, what would happen? Well, you could probably focus on other tasks that are more important. and you won't be so distracted by the visual conflict. So back to my example, if you start asking, how can I balance these two pieces of furniture? How can I balance them visually? Well, you might add a couple stools under the table. You're going to start adding objects on the top of the table, playing around with that balance, the visual weight. You've got these two pieces of furniture. One is going to feel heavier than the other because of what it is, a closed piece of furniture. Could be even a darker tone of wood. So you're going to start playing around with it and adding things and arranging things in a way that give them a more balanced feel. And it's the same for furniture arrangement. Do you have a lot of furniture pieces on one side of your room? This often happens because it could make the most sense with the flow of the room where people are walking. But if this is happening, how can you add that visual balance? How can you add some weight to the other side of the room? Could you add a larger chair opposite the sofa? Or if you can add some more visual weight with art or even a patterned wallpaper behind. So again, you're really playing around with it and trying things and then living in it, using the room and paying attention to how you feel in this space. Where are your eyes moving when you walk in? What's going on inside? How do you feel when you use the room, depending on what you need to use the room for? Is it supporting that? Do you feel good while you're in the room? So when you balance a space, you're going to feel much better in the room. And you can do this, like I said, with color, right? There's visual weights to colors. There's visual weights to wood tones, darker versus lighter. Like just start thinking about that. And size. I would say playing with arrangements, playing with size of objects, that's really going to help you. And I would say that's probably the easiest way to start, is to really focus in on the size of objects, how you're anchoring them with, like I said, under the table. Are you putting some stools? Right away, that's sort of filling that space. It's giving it more visual weight. So the next thing is repetition. Repetition is really about creating a cohesive space. So when you utilize repetition, you're creating a sense of flow. So repetition is, as it sounds, you're repeating things. And you can choose what you're going to repeat. You can choose to repeat a color. You can choose to repeat certain shapes, like rounded furniture. In a living room, this might look like rounded arms on your sofa, or round occasional tables, rounded patterns in an area rug, a round mirror on the wall. Now, not everything in the room needs to be rounded, but you're creating repetition, and it should feel fairly obvious. You're reinforcing that shape in the space. But just bear in mind that you still want your space to feel interesting, right? So don't overdo repetition so it looks like everything is so predictable. Repetition does not need to be like that. And again, if we're going to utilize balance, bringing forward that balance, it's the same when you're using repetition, the rounded furniture. You're now going to repeat that rounded pattern with rounded furniture, with the rounded mirror, but you're going to balance that in the space. So you're going to repeat it in the corner, and then you're going to repeat that on the opposite side and again on the other side. So there's a balance in the repetition as well. Okay, just bear in mind that you still want your space, as I said, to feel interesting. So that's how we start doing that. And another way to add repetition and to make that space feel intentional is with color. Color in repetition is one of the best things that you can do, because you can use, say, 4 different shades of the same color. So if you're going with green is I'm going to use repetition in the form of color. So you chose green. So now you can pull 4 shades of that green and you can start carrying them through. And when you're pulling 4 different shades of that color and you're dispersing them throughout the room in a balanced way, you're seeing that repetition without it feeling too matchy-matchy. And that's how you create an interesting space, because those tones are playing off of each other. They make sense together, but they're just different enough to give that sense of interest. You can repeat certain textures, for instance, too. If you have, say, a woven lampshade, you could get a woven chair or a woven tray. So what is it about repetition, and why are we going to feel that sense of cohesiveness and ease when you use it to create your space? I read a study that was really interesting, and it basically suggested that when there are repeating stimuli, something happens in our brains called repetition suppression. And our brain can process the visual information much more efficiently because we recognize the repeating elements. So our brain doesn't have to work as hard in the room. So why is this a good thing? Well, it just means that your brain is conserving energy. And where you would have normally used that energy to make sense of your space, you won't have to. So you could potentially have increased mental energy, a reduction of stress, and improved focus. So think of how you're using that room. Would that help you with the tasks, that you're using it for? Would it help you if you had more focus? If you felt less stressed? If you had more mental energy? Imagine if you are using that room to work from home. If you use that room to read, to learn. If you use that room to work out. If you use your room to write or to eat, if it's a kitchen. If you're feeling stressed in a room, you actually won't digest your food as well. You see, this is how we better our lives using interior design as a tool. So now I'm going to talk about flow. And I'm only going to sort of touch on flow today and just give you some sort of simple explanations and understanding of how to use it. But flow in design is basically the visual flow of a space. So how you move through the space and also how it connects to other rooms within your home. As much as we are trying to get one room right, you do move from that room to another. So this is how you can create flow in the room that is carried through. Okay, so it makes for a really good feeling throughout your spaces. They're connected in some way. There's good flow. And especially if you can actually see into other rooms from the room, you want to have some sort of visual connection there. You want there to be repeating elements or something that's flowing from one space to the next. And you can do this with a color palette, so keeping it complementary to the next room. So if you have a color scheme going on in another room, you can look to that room to inform and give you direction in terms of what you can do in this room, right? So you could choose a few shades of that color, going back to the green example. If you've got green and you're pulling 4 different tones of that color, you can then utilize one of those tones to move through into the next room. And it can be done in very subtle ways. You're just creating that visual flow, that visual connection from one space to the next. And you can also just create flow within the room itself. And this can be done often with furniture. So where you place furniture is going to affect how you move in the space, right? So you want that flow of the room to happen very naturally. You don't want to move through the space and feel any awkwardness or feel that it doesn't make sense. So creating flow with furniture and then creating flow from one room to the next. So when you're feeling overwhelmed in a room and you're not sure where to start and how to style it, and like I said earlier, what to add, what to take away, the first thing that I want you to start with before, now that you understand balance, repetition, and flow, before you start playing around with that, I want you first to pay attention to how you use the room, how you need to use the room. What do you want to do in that space? And then I want you to focus in on asking, are there any lifestyle things that you're wanting to address? And this is really important because if, let's say you have a pile of books that you bought with the best of intentions of reading them and becoming an avid reader, but you haven't done it yet, well, here's your opportunity to set your room up in a way that helps you become the reader you want to become, focusing really on what lifestyle changes you want to make. If there's a habit you want to change, like you watch too much TV or you're on your phone too much, you have the opportunity then to consider how you can set the room up to tackle that habit to help yourself, right? So create a tech-free space or remove the TV. And these are little changes, which can sound simple, but they help immensely with the design choices that will follow. So starting with this really, really helps narrow it down. This helps with editing your space and paring down what's in there. So removing those things from the room that don't serve the purpose of the room. And our objects are so important to us. So if you can remove the ones that don't carry as much meaning to you and highlight the things that mean the most, because studies suggest that we view our objects as an extension of ourselves. So remembering that what you're deciding to keep, what you decide to surround yourself with, be intentional about what you choose to be next to, what you're choosing to look at, and what you're choosing to impact you. As we end this episode, I'm going to move into the key takeaways. But before I do, I just want to share a little tip, because I know there's a lot of you out there that struggle with wood tones. Wood tones can be very confusing, especially when you feel a sense of angst in the space. You're not sure how to take the design and really hone in on the direction. So wood tones is one of those things that just adds to that level of confusion. I understand that. I know that. And so I just wanted to share a little tip with you, just to help you kind of take that off your mental checklist of things that are bothering you. So the first thing is to just stick with like 2 or 3 wood tones. Okay. Now I'm talking about, when I say wood tones, I mean lighter, darker, medium. Play around with that, right? Stick to 2 or 3 different, I guess, strengths, if you will. I don't know if that's like the easiest way to explain it, but yeah, so basically lighter to darker, right? You're playing with 2 or 3 of those, and you're going to choose one that's the most dominant in the space. Okay. So maybe it's like the largest piece of furniture like wood furniture that you have in the room. And then you're going to repeat that wood and balance it in the space. Okay. So if you're using that one piece of furniture, that's your starting point. And the first thing you're going to want to say is, what's the undertone? Is it warm? So is it red? Is it orange? Or is it cool? Is it more of like a gray? Maybe it's got a slightly blue undertone. So that's really, really important, because you want to work with the undertone and keep that consistent with the other woods in the room. So if the undertone on your piece that's gonna inform your other, your dominant piece, let's say, that's the piece that's going to inform the other wood tones or woods in the room. You want to look to that piece and determine what the undertone is. And then you're going to keep that undertone throughout the room. So if it's got a red undertone, you're working with red. Okay. So you're going to say, okay, if I'm pairing this with a light wood side table, you want the light wood to have a slightly red undertone. Or if you're going to pair it with a really dark wood, does that dark wood have that red undertone? They have to speak to each other, because once you start going away from that and mixing those undertones, just trust me, just work with the undertones. It's going to give it a very cohesive, intentional look. So I hope that helped, because I do know that a lot of people do struggle with wood tones and how to choose them. And so just stick with that. I hope that made sense. If it didn't, or if you want me to talk about this further, just DM me or send me an email. I don't know, just reach out. Okay. And I love hearing, where you guys are struggling, or what you want to learn, or, what you're enjoying. So yeah, as always. So now I'm going to move into the key takeaways from today. So I am going to share 8 key takeaways from today, and I'm going to try to run through them fairly quickly. The first one is to start with the edit. Okay, overwhelm in a room often comes from too much going on, too many colors, too many styles, or objects competing for your attention. Okay, begin by paring down your space, keeping what truly matters and letting go of what doesn't serve the room's purpose and your goals. Okay. Number 2, focus on balance. Balance is about distributing visual weight evenly across the room. So when elements feel too heavy on one side or out of proportion, it creates tension in your brain. So pay attention to the placement of furniture, artwork, and decor to create harmony. Okay. Number 3, use repetition to create flow. Repeating shapes, colors, or textures throughout a room creates a cohesion and helps your brain process the space more efficiently. Whether it's rounded furniture, woven accents, or variations of a single color, repetition reduces visual stress and boosts comfort. Number 4, design with intentionality. Be intentional about how you use your room. Consider your habits and the lifestyle changes you want to support. For example, if you want to read more, create a cozy reading nook with a chair, a lamp, your favorite books within reach. Let the room work for you, and that will help you when you're deciding what to keep and what to get rid of in that space. Number 5, understand the importance of flow. Flow connects your space to the rest of your home. Create a color palette or decor style that complements adjoining rooms, to create a seamless transition. Flow also considers how you physically move through the space, so ensuring that it feels natural and functional. You want to feel good when you're moving around that room. Number 6, balance and simplifying wood tones, So stick to those 2 or 3 wood tones in the space with that one dominant tone repeated throughout, and pay attention to undertones, warm or cool, and use them to guide your choices for a cohesive look. Number 7, play and observe. Once you've established your room's foundation, have fun experimenting with your decor, rearranging your items, layering textures, and trying pieces from other rooms. Observe how your space makes you feel. Do that visual edit and pay attention to how you're feeling, and make adjustments until it aligns with your vision. And number 8, last one, the power of meaningful space. Your home reflects who you are, so surround yourself with items that bring you joy, that have meaning and purpose. A room designed with intention not only looks good, but it also boosts your well-being, productivity, and happiness. Your home has the power to support your goals and enrich your life when designed with balance, repetition, and flow. Take it one step at a time, enjoy the process, and trust that your space will come together beautifully. If you're on the opposite end of the spectrum, living in a blank space with no personality or connection, next episode will guide you on how to infuse life and meaning into your room. So don't miss it. Thank you for listening to today's episode. Thanks so much for listening today. If you found this episode helpful, the best way to support the show is to follow along and share it with someone who'd love it too. And if you'd like to go a step further, you can become one of our Better Living backers. It's a small monthly contribution that helps keep the show going. And as a thank you, I'll send you a personal note along with a 15% discount for the Create Space course when it launches. You can find the Support the Show link right in the show notes. I'm so glad you're here. Thanks for creating space with me.